Hi, welcome to The Times of Israel's What Matters Now, a weekly podcast delving into one issue focusing on Israel and the Jewish world right now. I'm your host, arts and culture editor Jessica Steinberg, here with Steve Cook and Mike Solomonov, co-owners of the Philadelphia culinary group CookNSolo Restaurants that champion Israeli food and culture in their hometown of Philly and beyond. Just a few more details. Together, they've been awarded 3 James Beard Foundation Awards, with Mike receiving 2 additional Beard Awards for his work as chef of Zahav, where we are sitting, their flagship restaurant where we're seated right now. Other restaurants include, and I double-checked this, but you might correct me, guys, Aviv in Miami, Dizengoff, 5 locations of Goldie, Jaffa Bar, Kfar Cafe in Philly and New York, correct? Laser Wolf, also another location in New York, Event Space Lila, and we had said Zahav. Okay. And as we get to the end of this, they've also co-authored 3 acclaimed cookbooks, Zahav, Federal Donuts, the parentheses, partially true spectacular story, and Israeli Soul, easy, essential, and delicious. Hello.
Hi. Wow. We've been listening to your voice for so many years. I can't believe that we're on this.
I'm just excited that we're sitting at the same table and doing
amazing.
This.
I know.
By the way, that voice was Mike. And Steve, say something so we can get to know your voice.
It's a real thrill to be here.
It is a real thrill and a pleasure, and to be in the city of brotherly love with you. And we're going to go through your story, the backstory a little bit, and some of the things that you're dealing with as essentially Israeli restaurant owners in the States, which is a complicated thing, I think.
Not so easy.
Not so easy.
But I think it would be much harder if we were restaurant owners in Israel. That's a tough market. Holy cow.
It is a tough market. Different kind of tough, I would say. Right? And we're not going to forget about hummus either. Let's start with how you met, because I was looking back doing some research and I don't think I had known all the details. Steve, I think it started on your end of life.
Yeah, well, like most good things in my life, my wife Shira made the introduction to Mike. They had grown up together in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh, and Mike's mother, Evelyn, was Shira's English teacher, and Shira credits Evelyn with being the inspiration for her to become a teacher. And so Shira told me about Mike. I think we had, actually, funny story is that Mike and I both lived next door to each other in Philly when we first moved here, literally next door, 2026 Green Street and 2028 Green Street, and never met. It took a year and Shira to put us together.
And you were both chefs.
We were both.
So I'd been hearing about Steve, though, because there weren't that many Jewish line cooks then. So when you get into a kitchen, they'd be like, "Oh, you know Steve, right?" And it's like, I remember Boris was like, "I think he's the son of a rabbi." And I was like, all right. So I kept hearing about this guy. They're like, he's really quiet and really nice, And I'm like, this Steve, I don't know. And then somebody said, maybe it was running into Shira at a Whole Foods or something like that. And we hadn't seen each other in years. And she was like, I'm engaged to Steve. He's also a line. And I was like, all right, Steve.
I think we were at a party at Adam, blanking on his last name, but Adam Pollock's house in Fairmount.
Yeah.
And I think I was there and then left, and then you came, and that was a near miss.
Yeah.
I mean, Jewish line cooks, I imagine that wasn't such a thing.
Way less than there is now. And at the time in Philly, definitely not. Yeah. I mean, and the Squirrel, I think Squirrel Hill is the glue for all of this.
Yeah, I think Squirrel Hill is the stamp of approval on anybody you would meet.
That's why
you don't need anything else.
That's why you hired me, right?
That's right.
And, yeah.
Right.
Right. And then you hired Mike.
Right. So I'm a career change guy, and I had been the chef of this restaurant, Marigold Kitchen, that I opened before we met. And long story, but just really wasn't happy doing that. And
not like now, Steve.
Not
right?
like now. No, now is pure bliss. But back then I was looking for somebody to maybe come in and help me out or replace me. And luckily...
Oh, and replace you.
To replace me. And luckily enough, Mike was available. And Shira put us together. And I think we met maybe twice before we decided to work together.
That's not a lot of not a lot of meeting.
No.
Well, it was like it's like another Jewish chef, and it's Shira's fiance.
So therefore,
we're okay. And I'd been hearing about like Marigold had gotten really good reviews, and even in the write-up from the Inquirer food critic, it had talked about his sort of Ashkenazi roots. Like there was like white asparagus with like chicken liver croquettes, this sort of blintz thing. And so the idea that like Steve's heritage was kind of making its way into this like new American kind of BYOB, I thought was really intriguing. And then when Steve hired me, I basically did the same thing. I just did it like a little bit less Ashkenaz. Like I did it a little bit more Mizrahi Sephardic.
Uh-huh.
There were many afternoons when Mike took over where we were rushing around to the Middle Eastern markets in West Philly, which fortunately were like within walking distance,
right?
To find like freekeh or halloumi or.
And was it available?
Just in these little markets, and God forbid they were out. Like we were
spurred.
Like totally.
I feel
screwed.
like we were the only purchaser of these products, but it was. They had they had silan, they had carob molasses, they had like deebs, like the grape molasses, all that stuff just sitting on a dusty shelf. It was like food market. They made like sandwiches. It was like a taxi cab stop. It was like Islamic bookstore upstairs.
Right.
And then they had these bags of za'atar or whatever, you know?
Sitting there, not
and it
stale.
was very close to the restaurant. And that really helped. And that actually, at the time, I mean, that was like, the way that we got spices was either there or waiting for like my mom to visit from Israel.
And she'd bring bags from the shuk?
Yeah. And like her luggage would smell like a spice market. You know, it wasn't an awesome buy
experience for her clothing.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Wait, what year? So what year is this specifically when you decided?
This is 2005.
So this is 2005. So it's after your brother was killed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just go a little bit over the Israeli history for you. Your dad's Israeli.
So I was born in Israel. Dad was born in Varna, Bulgaria.
Right.
But
But then
when he was like, less than a year old. So he moved in 1948. He grew up in Lud. Met my mom, who grew up in Ohio. She made Aliyah in the 1960s and then left and then came back again in the 1970s. Met my dad. They had me. My dad, being Israeli, wanted to move to the States. My mom wanted to stay. We ended up moving to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because she grew up in Ohio. I had my little brother David there. Moved back to Israel when I was 15.
Hard age, as you've said many times.
Yeah, not an easy time. I was super pissed off. David was 12. I was 15. The condition that I would sort of go was that I went to an American boarding school with the understanding that I would go back after 1 year and finish my senior year in Pittsburgh. Had probably the most important year of my life, or one of them at least, and that was, the boarding school was in Pardes Chana, and this was before Pardes Chana became like
cool.
The cooler, like whatever the swingers paradise
Yeah,
that it is now.
It is now. Yeah.
Okay, so it definitely was not then, and I should have bought property there.
Oh, definitely. You guys, you probably should open a restaurant there, but we can talk about that
that would
later.
be so funny, because for us, like the food offerings,
falafel, shawarma.
There was, it's still some of the best falafels in Karkor at Dvora. There were, whatever, the food on the street was great, but it was not a fancy town at all. And we were like 40 American kids, so crazy that our parents were like, you're going to work on a farm in Israel for like a year. But really like Reuven and Rena, who were the
counselors.
Founders, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then David Cohen, who was the madrich. They're, some of the most important people in my life, right? And I made some of the closest friends that I have in my life. And that was a year where, we watched peace happen with Jordan in real time. It was such a crazy
period.
It was such a crazy period. And also coming from the States, even though there was certainly political hostility, it was right before the Second Intifada, you could still, on like 25 shekels, basically get wherever you wanted in the country and like find a place to stay.
Right.
So every other weekend we could leave the campus and we would just like go as far as we could, you know?
Right.
So it was incredible, and learning about the country then, you know, sort of like the juxtaposition between the history, you know, which in our class dated back to 5,000 years, and then the sort of modern, like what was happening politically was like so fascinating. And we were also working on a farm, so different than what we were used to in our daily
Red peppers
lives.
and tomatoes. I mean,
Picking pomelos and like shoveling shit mostly. It was like really, it was not glamorous and very, very different than the lives we're used to in the United States. I moved back to the States and went back to Squirrel Hill. And I remember getting off the airplane and feeling like I was like something was missing. That was like
and your parents and your brother
stayed. And my brother assimilated and learned Hebrew, and bar mitzvah year was a really tough time for him. The year that I moved back, my parents divorced. And David actually he started like kind of interning for a vet, and was like, which definitely is not
what he
law
was.
abiding. Well, no, I mean, like, I don't think you can be like 13 or 14 years old.
Meaning
working in like
yes.
assisting in like surgeries of dogs and cats, but
Probably
really loved
not.
it.
Right.
Moshik, who was the vet in Kfar Saba, was like, you know, a second father to my brother. And that was it. And then David went to the military. I mean, he was in Golani, Shlosh and ended up becoming a sniper, and spent, you know, most of his time, I think, in Gaza.
I was going to say probably in Gaza in those years.
Yeah. Not so much Lebanon.
Not so much Lebanon.
Well, but that was after the withdrawal, right?
Right.
So,
right. Well, no, it was before 2000 it was 2003, correct?
2003, and the withdrawal was what, 2001, right?
Right.
Yeah. So he spent some time in Gaza and then in the West Bank, I think. I mean, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
We didn't have, I don't think, I guess we could make international cell phone calls, but they were super expensive. So we didn't.
It's 23
and
years ago.
We definitely didn't talk about his military service over the phone.
When you were talking.
And he also didn't talk about his military service to his family at all, like everybody else. So, you know, we spent years not living on the same continent. And then I went to culinary school. Well, I dropped out of college, moved to Israel, got a job working at a bakery in Kfar Saba. Not because I wanted to be a chef, but just because that was the only place that would hire me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked at a coffee shop up the street, and then I went to culinary school, and then moved to Philly because it was quite literally on the way to New York, and that was it.
Now, Steve, what's your Israel background?
I mean, I'm a son of a Reform rabbi. I'm a day school kid.
Israel trips.
But I'm listening to Mike, and I'm like, I grew up like an American Jew,
right?
And
he grew up more like an Israeli in certain ways.
A little more like mixed, you know. But I mean, Israel was, you know, it was. I don't want to say taken for granted, but like our support of Israel was just baked in. But we didn't, you know. I went a few times with my parents.
Teen tours?
I didn't get to go on any teen tours.
Okay.
My brother did. But yeah, I mean, it was just sort of a given. Israel was big in our house, and there was no, I don't know how to say it, but.
No, I just was curious about it because Mike's story or parts of it are certainly well known, but you guys have created this thing together that is very Israel focused.
Yeah, I mean, I think it felt like, you know, we both went to culinary school, and, you know, culinary school for the most part is really about French cooking.
Right.
And, you know, I think finding something that's personal to you to cook, that you believe in, I think that's really what's been behind our success. You know, not anybody, you know, anybody can go out and cook French food.
Yeah.
I think cooking Israeli food is, you know, it's got to come from somewhere deeper.
And not blintzes necessarily, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, can't beat a frozen blintz. I don't know. That's what I grew up on.
Souffle, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so now, obviously, you can always go into more of the details for each of you. But at what point did you look at each other? I mean, you were already talking about that, you know, in terms of the spices, in terms of the menu that you were working with. Did you have some aha moment where you said, let's open a restaurant that's based on Israeli cuisine? Because it is a long time ago in this history of Israeli cuisine making its way into the restaurant world?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike was already getting noticed for those inflections on the menu at Marigold. But, Marigold was not a busy restaurant. And we had a lot of time sitting on the back steps of the kitchen. And I mean, I will say, like, having done this for 20 years, it still surprises me that, like, when you have a restaurant that is losing money, why are you talking about opening another restaurant? But that's kind of what we did. We fantasized about it. And Mike had this real, I think, vision and this real sort of question as to, like, why isn't this food being represented? It's so vibrant. It's so exciting. It's such a unique way of eating. And so we would talk about what would ultimately become Zahav for probably over a year, 2 years before we
That's a while.
kind of had the courage to act on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a question. It was just so different than what everybody was doing. And then I think that also, again, it's like both of our pedigrees suggested that you go to Europe and then go to New York and then plate stuff with like tweezers and, sous vide everything and all that. And like the trip, I think I come back from a trip and I was like eating with my dad at a restaurant in Shchonot HaTikva called Busi.
In Tel Aviv.
Yeah, right. And this was before it became like gentrified or cool or whatever.
Right.
It was just
Hardcore working class.
super working class. And there was like this restaurant Busi that has been around since like the 50s. I think they called it a Yemenite grill, but that doesn't really mean.
Oh yeah, Yemenite grill.
But it's not really Temani. Like it was the Yemenite family that opened a restaurant probably in the 50s.
Right.
And they just like grill everything and you sit down and it's like all the salads. And then there's one on I can't remember the name of the main like Rehov or whatever, but there's like one little bakery, like Tabun Bakery.
Yeah.
And so everybody gets their laffa from that. Like the server like runs out of the restaurant,
And
runs
goes
down the
pick
street,
up.
gets the laffa and then comes back in. And then like all the meat. And it was just the way to explain Israel, and the food was like just so good and it was so unfancy, but so bright and vibrant. And you had like vegetables and the fresh bread and all the meat a la esh, which was like the opposite of the way that we were cooking meat, right? Because everything was like sous vide and like whatever. And
French.
So I just thought that was really, really cool. And Steve, you probably don't remember this, but you had told me about a trip that you had taken where I think you had like gone to the hospital, you'd like cut open your chin maybe.
I did.
Right? On a treadmill?
On a treadmill.
Right? And then, but also in that same trip, I don't know, I have the weirdest, most selective. I have an unnecessarily selective memory, but you also talked about stuffed hearts. It was like a stuffed calf's heart, right? Stuffed with rice. And I was just kind of sitting in sauce. And I was like, I think about like the azura. I think about like the meals that you get in pots. And I was like, that shit blows away everything that we make,
Do you remember that moment, Steve?
No, I remember cutting my chin open. But I will say that if you came to Zahav 5 years ago and then you come run across Mike, he will tell you the table number at Zahav that you sat at.
That's pretty crazy.
It's a weird, I don't know, like really for the amount of LSD that I've taken in my life.
You have a good memory.
Yeah. But the stuffed hearts, like just the imagery of that and that, like I feel like with Israeli food, it's 100 different families. It's like the food of like saftas, right? That
cooking Friday night dinner. Mm-hmm.
And I think the older we get, the less impressed we are with like the stuff. It should just be the essence of things. And so, but Zahav wasn't. Zahav, the catalyst for opening an Israeli restaurant, the idea of it was closer to like Laser Wolf, which is a shipudia.
Right. I was going to say, isn't Laser, it sounds more like a Laser Wolf menu.
It is, but we didn't know, like that was too much of a depart. Like that would have been just too much, whereas Zahav is like a restaurant.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. But we opened Zahav and we almost closed Zahav like very quickly. It was a really difficult opening.
And that's 18
years ago.
18 years ago.
Yeah, we just had 18.
Hi, baby.
Hi.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Steve, you want to add something to the difficulties of Zahav at the beginning or anything else?
Well, I mean, it almost closed 6 months in. I mean, we couldn't convince,
diners or or what was the?
We couldn't convince diners. I mean, first of all, the location, we're up on a hill. It's a really special location.
It's the tavern. I realized when I got out of my cab.
Yeah, but it's not easy to find. I mean, our address literally doesn't exist. And
it's always been in this location.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was just very challenging. I mean, our menu had transliterations of Hebrew words on it exclusively.
Wow. It's like a prayer book in menu form.
Yeah. So nobody knew what the hell we were serving. It just, it was a great lesson in humility. Unfortunately, one we sort of absorbed quick enough to not be talking about the restaurant that we opened 18 years ago that closed after 6 months.
Was it because it was Philly also? Is Philly just I don't know. I'm wondering, would New York have been easier in a sense? I have no idea. I'm just wondering.
We opened in 2008. I mean, rent would have been higher, so no, it probably would have closed faster. We opened in 2008, right before the recession.
Oh, right. Of course.
Phillies had won the World Series, which is terrible for restaurants.
Because?
No TV.
No TV.
Oh.
I mean, it was that long playoff run was like right in prime time where we opened and we would have been, reviewed and...
Oh God, we were doing like 18 covers a night.
Wow.
Yeah, we do 280 a night. It was awful.
It wasn't enough at all.
It was really, really bad. Steve had taken me to drug rehab and detox like 3 months into opening.
So you were not doing well on a physical...
Oh my God, it was such a bad it was
level.
Such a fucking nightmare. We could write a book about that opening.
So what made you survive?
I think that what I love the most about restaurants is problem solving, because there's an endless parade of problems to be solved. And I think we just, backs against the wall, what are you going to do? I mean, we roll up our sleeves. We borrowed a little bit of money from Mike's dad. We fired a bunch of managers and kind of did more ourselves.
Oh God, yeah, we did everything. It was like...
Do it yourself.
And, we I think a lot of people in our business, a lot of chefs, they want to be creative the way that they want to be creative. They want to do what they want to do. And I think you really have to listen to the guests.
Mm.
If you think that you are, if you think that it's the customer that doesn't get what you're doing, and that is a guaranteed failure.
Yeah.
The guests will tell you, and the guests were telling us by not coming. So we changed the wording on the menu. I think Mike started cooking a little bit less for himself, frankly, and a little bit more for the guests, and a little bit more sort of from the soul, I guess, instead of from the brain.
Actually, right. Another memory I have is the mackerel dish. When I got out of rehab, yeah, I mean, things were awful. They were awful. We thought that, or I specifically thought that, like, the way to get accolade was to do fancy. So we had like fancy tasting menu, and then we had like the, casual, right? And fancy wasn't working, casual wasn't really working either. And I remember there was like this mackerel escabeche that I was making that was really like Balkan, right? Like a pickled fish kind of vibe.
Sure.
And then there were like lentils that were cooked with like a lot of onion and cumin, which is like super Lebanese.
Right.
And there was like some other like hawaji sort of pickle. And I was like, I was like, Steve, like, I want to put these together, but they're so culturally, it doesn't work.
Doesn't mix,
and he was
right.
like, just do it. Like, you have this vantage point of not being there. And it was essentially like our ethos of this restaurant, which is like, you can take the Temani, you can take the Libyan, you can take the Sephardic, you can take the Palestinian, you can take the Ashkenazi, and you mix it up. And that's what Israeli cuisine is.
Right.
And at that time, had you gone to Israel 20 years ago and asked an Israeli on the street where the best Israeli restaurant, there was no answer.
Sure.
Because there's Bulgarian, there's Romanian, there's shawarma, there's this,
and
there's that.
Mix.
And it just like didn't make sense, right? And at that time, Israeli chefs were leaving the country to go to like Italy and coming back and opening like Roman restaurants in Tel Aviv. When one grandparent was Temani, one was Iranian, one was Iraqi,
and they weren't
one was
cooking
Greek.
that at all.
Why? And your Shabbat table is way more exciting than fried artichokes. Nothing against fried artichokes. I mean, love fried artichokes, but come on, there's so much going on. And so that mackerel moment, which Steve probably doesn't remember either, which was basically like, you're a chef, you're not bound by tradition, you're not a grandmother, fucking mix it up, you
Not
know?
yet.
I'm sorry, can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that for us, that kind of opened the door. And I think also our backs were to the wall and we were about to close. So it was like, you might as well
do it.
try
when
it,
comes
you know?
to you. Wow. But
So-
then from there to all of this, that
Yeah, I mean, some of it is luck. You know, we got a really great piece of press right at the exact moment where we needed it.
yeah.
And then people started, you know, we talk about this all the time because, you know, we've got a lot of restaurants and at any point in time, one of them is bound to be struggling. And, you know, we talk about it all the time. If we make great food and we give good service, like people will come. Sometimes it takes more time than you want it to, but
And you have to be relaxed with that knowledge, I guess, in a sense.
you have to be confident in that what you're doing is good. And that's just what started to happen. We got great press, so that got people in the door and they got to see what Mike was doing in the kitchen. And that just sort of snowballed into...
Restaurant Week also helped us actually shape our menu too.
Right. Restaurant Week is this...
in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing that is popular, I think, all over the place now. But, you know, in the sort of shoulder seasons where restaurants aren't busy, you know, you get together with, you know, with the local marketing, you know, the local whatever visitors bureau, and they promote like a deal to get people in the door.
In the door. Mm-hmm.
So that filled the restaurant for one of the first times since we opened. And that was a big catalyst to getting people to try what we were doing.
And also because it was like a 5-course format instead of just the way that you ordered before was like, you could just sort of pick everything.
Pick from the menu. Mm-hmm.
Salad, like you almost like had to pick specific salad team. And then it was like 3, 5, or 7. Yeah, the menu was like impossible. And this way, you just got salads and hummus and bread, which is what you
like
get.
a shapuria,
exactly. And then you pick like a meze or 2 mezes, and then you get a skewer and dessert. And we're like, oh my God, people, this is like, this works for the kitchen. We can like understand this. People know how to order. And when you eat, you're like tasting, 22 different things, right?
Yes.
And it's so exciting. So we were like, we called that the Restaurant Week menu. We sort of just kept forever. We called it Taim, obviously, tasting. And it was just like, it worked for us.
I am going to ask that question one more time, just because from one restaurant to many, and then that gets us sort of into the second half of what we want to talk about. When did you say, I mean, obviously you added one restaurant at a time, right? But at what point did you say, okay, we're going to open what we want. We're going to see what we can do. We're figuring out how to do this, or we're good at it. And we have the confidence that you talked about, Steve. I don't know, or you never do, or you just keep on doing it because you have the feel for it.
I think we really had a passion for it. I mean, we wanted to do it in spite of often that we had to sign for loans, like with our house as collateral. So I guess you got to believe in yourself to do that.
A little bit, yeah.
A lot of it was, it's a very human, it's a human business. So having people on our team that were capable and wanted to kind of grow with us was always a big factor. Having an idea that we could get behind. I mean, we opened Dizengoff as a hummusiya in 2013, I think. And we were really, up until the moment we opened it, we were really afraid that if we gave people just the hummus from Zahav, then they would never have any reason to come back to Zahav. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like we love the creative side of the business. We love cooking food for people and taking care of guests. And that was what was driving the desire to do more, to do another restaurant.
And at different kinds of places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fast forwarding to really the last few years. And I've been following you guys on social media for a very long time. And then I happened to be here last summer and saw more of your operation in person. And I just kept on thinking about what is it like to be running these very Israeli establishments, clearly with staffs that are, I assume, mostly not Israeli and not at all. We're in Philadelphia. What is it like to run this with this thing that is very much about you and your identities and your histories, and to run it at a time when the world is in a big question mark, when we're seeing a lot of anti-Israel sentiment? I mean, there are obviously particular situations with some of your restaurants. I'm not even talking about that, though. I'm really talking about staff, talking about the atmosphere. Were customers staying away? Was there any kind of feeling of, well, I don't want to eat Israeli food right now, or what you call Israeli food, or really any of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we try to answer that question all the time. We had opened Zahav in 2008 because nobody was doing that food, and because it was like amazing, because we have a relationship to Israel, obviously, and because selfishly, I wanted to be like closer to my brother, right? And so, and I felt like Israel was extremely misrepresented and misunderstood. I did
then
not,
as well.
and well, I did not think that 18 years later it would be more so, and yeah, so it's very complicated. I would say what is interesting, I mean, we have almost 500 employees.
Of course you do, right?
Of a demographic of Americans that like definitely do not favor or oftentimes side with Israel, which is fine. I mean, I think it's a pretty strange time. We're equal opportunity employers, and we don't like hire or fire people based on their politics.
Sure.
It is a big question. Our restaurants are healthy, and our staff makes money at these restaurants. They know who we are personally. I would like to think, and this is definitely not our mission, that we are at least trying to like give people an opportunity to understand a different side of who we are as it relates to Israel or the country itself.
Right. I mean, Steve, before I get to another question, I'd love to hear your take on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's been challenging. I mean, to go from COVID,
right?
Restaurant business is notoriously difficult to begin with, and then they go from COVID, and then to but as Mike said earlier in the interview, I mean, we Israelis would come up to us and say, "Are you doing okay?" And we'd be like, "Are you doing okay?" What we had to deal with was challenging, but nothing compared to what.
And you're saying post October 7th?
Yes,
yeah,
nothing compared to what Israelis were going through.
Different challenge. I mean, different challenging, I guess.
Right. My family that were like serving in Miluim would WhatsApp me, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Dude, put down the phone. Like, we're good.
Don't worry about us."
Yeah.
But as challenging as it was, I felt very proud that we could be out there in public being, we don't have to say anything. I mean, we don't have to say anything for people to look at us
and say,
"This is an Israeli, this is an Israeli restaurant group." And some people, for some people that's inspiring, and to other people that is a lightning rod for hate. But I felt very proud. It truly felt like that was the least we could do, was to be out there and continue to do what we're doing and not make apologies for who we are.
I mean, obviously you're not having, discussion circles with your staff members about Israeli policies. But I know that both of you are very engaged in following the news and thinking about it and talking about it between the two of you. And I have wondered, does it come up ever? I don't know, in the kitchen. Does it come up? Am I just thinking with an Israeli head, and there's no way you would talk about it at work?
Listen, we would not talk about that at work with our employees, for many reasons.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's a conversation happening. Well, again, we have 500 employees and 20 locations. But we're owners of the business. It is our responsibility to be like good employers, And so certainly not, it's like not our place. I suppose if somebody wanted to like come to me and talk, but most people don't, especially when it comes to news cycle, especially when it comes to like getting informed only by social media. That's not what people want to do.
Right.
They don't want to talk about it. I'm very open
Right. I mean,
about our history. And, again, and like, I don't even want to talk about this because I find it to be this sort of single standard with Israelis in particular, where you have to like denounce the government or whatever to like not agree, which is funny because I'm like, every Israeli in Israel denounces the government every time they watch the news. But, I was very like publicly on social media critical of the government, which I still am, but I just was like, I don't need to like do this. I don't need to like be an apologist for policies that I have no control over whatsoever. We're just human beings. We would never ask that with another ethnic group opening restaurants in the United States. You would just never do that. Right?
No, you would not. That's very true.
And I think as it relates to our staff, they know who we are. I think they know us as people. I would like to think that people can see beyond representation in the news, on social media. And we have an amazing staff that regardless of what their politics are, they work tremendously hard.
Right.
So, and I think that's kind of all you can ask for right now.
That makes a lot of sense.
I will say one of the silver linings for me is, we have this 21-year partnership at this point, and, to be able to have Mike, and I think he feels the same way, to like vent to when you can't vent
to anyone
else, as made this much more livable.
It would have been impossible. I mean, I just don't know how you could have gotten through. I mean, not just now, like COVID was whatever. Steve was the one that drove me to rehab and then would pick me up every day from a 12-step meeting.
And then
after hiding an addiction to my business partner. I mean, so we have an incredibly close relationship. It would have been, I don't know how, could you imagine if like one of us wasn't privy to politics or culture of Israel, or I don't know how we would have done it.
It would have been extremely lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. What's it like for you? You report on this all day long. Now you're in the States.
It's a little bit of a break. You follow the news because that's, you can't not follow the news. But it definitely feels like there's, I sometimes I'm envious of friends and family here who I know are very attached and following it carefully, but you can take a little bit of a break when you're not in Israel.
Yeah.
You can live life a little bit. And there is a lot of complicated, what I find that I talk a lot about here is about what is it like here? Is the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel sentiment. And I wonder, and I want to hear very much from people that I'm seeing and visiting with what that's been like for them. And for some people, there's very little effect in their daily life, and it's just the larger picture. And for some people, it's changed their decisions about colleges, university, where they're living. Would they move to Israel? Lots of different questions. I don't know. Like, I was wondering, as you're both saying that to me, do you find that more people come to the restaurants in a sense? Is there an uptick because people say, I want to eat Israeli food?
On some level, I think that there is, and there has been periodically as things have flared, and I think people do, our Jewish clientele, I think, gets an extra level of satisfaction from coming here because they know what they're supporting. But I was saying earlier, like I grew up feeling like an American Jew, and I've never felt more other than I have in the last few years here, and that's a new experience for me.
Right.
And I've always lived in community, large Jewish communities.
Right.
I would say that, and I'm curious to know, you're an Israeli living in Israel right now. Are Israelis in Israel aware of like what the younger American generation, Jewish or not Jewish, feel about Israel at this moment?
Yes.
Do you all talk about it?
We all talk about it. I think people didn't really know right on October 8th.
No.
They didn't know for that first year or so. There just was too much sorrow and trauma and worry that people couldn't focus on it, but it's impossible to avoid now at this point. People are very aware of it, and people travel if they can get out and get on a plane, and then they travel and they find out that they are not accepted at this hotel or this bed and breakfast, or turned away from, people are experiencing it. I'm an English speaker, an American English speaker, so I don't experience it in the same way.
Right.
Steve, going back to what you were saying, I sometimes, as I follow you guys on Instagram, and you launched Zahav hummus, packaged, supermarket hummus this year, which is, I was sort of amazed by it. I think I ate it last summer. We bought it in Whole Foods to try it out. That must have been, I don't know, was that complicated to do in this time period, or Dafka, yes, wanted to do it now?
I think the idea had launched before October 7th, so it was already in motion.
You get no way to stop it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a great experience. It's been, for our brains, it's a whole other, it sounds like it's food, but it's a totally other business than restaurants. And we have great partners in that business. And restaurants are volatile. In the last, 5-6 years have shown us that. So for us to be able to kind of take what we do and diversify into a different segment of the industry feels good. And I don't know, it's fun to work on something that's different and the same at the same time.
Right. From familiar and yet different. I was also wondering, I don't know, Mike, did you want to say something about that? Right. I was also wondering, because Steve, you've become much more visible. And it's kind of nice to see the other face as we get toward the end of this podcast. I just want to say it's kind of nice to see the other partner in CookNSolo.
Well, I will say that it weighs on me a little bit over the years that Mike takes a lot of the bullets for us.
He's got the tattoos.
And
so, yeah.
This is not me. This is fun, but
it's not what you prefer to do.
It's not my preferred mode, but for the business, for the partnership, for what is needed, I'm willing to overcome my fear of appearing in public, and it's fun.
He's doing a great job.
It clearly.
I feel like we should honestly make a little show. I think it would be so much fun.
I think it would be a lot of fun.
We make really good food. Do you know that our last book, Zahav Home, was basically a reaction or response to COVID, because we were at home cooking. We were just cooking, and we were throughout the day, just what did you make? And I'd be like, I'd make mushroom makluba, and then 2 hours later I would do this. And so we just shot the cookbook in my kitchen, mostly barefoot, just cooking things start to finish.
With masks? No, you were
No, this was post-COVID. But it was the most fun, just getting to hang out and cook with my friend, So
right, because that's.
But I think we do that. I think that's why the Zahav food videos are so fun, because it's just kind of natural and carefree. I think
it's you guys. You really feel it. Yeah.
Can I talk about the retirement restaurant?
Okay. You're preempting me, which is great.
We have
what's the plan?
Well, we have this thing that started out maybe as a joke, but I'm sort of deadly serious about it at this point, which is that when we retire, whenever that may be,
we open.
Jessica, do you want to buy some restaurants?
No, but I'm happy to come eat at them.
we open a little restaurant, just the two of us, and we just we cook what we feel like cooking that day, and if we don't feel like being open, we don't have to be open. But just to kind of get back to the one of the prices of success, I think, in restaurants and maybe in anything, is the more successful you get, the less you get to do what originally brought you to that profession in the first place. So I would love to just wake up every morning, cook something, and hang out and go home.
It sounds kind of like a dream, basically.
It's a dream. Yeah. I
as long as you have to wash the dishes.
Well, I have a dishwasher.
Yeah. Okay.
Not me. Yeah, it would be great. I mean, I would say the most fun I have still is hanging out at Zahav, and just cooking or walking around and talking to people, not as the owner or manager, just Yeah.
We'll have like hard days and we'll talk and vent to each other. And then like, we'll talk the next morning and Mike's like, I got to cook at Zahav last night and it was so fun. And like, it's a great mood elevator, I think.
That's kind of amazing that it still does that for you. That cooking at, your flagship is still this place of comfort.
We did this dinner last night. It was a fundraiser for our friend Cookie, who owns a restaurant in Margate called Stephen Cookies, which is like the best. She has this farm, and Andrew, who's the chef and partner at Jaffa, he and I got to like cook a menu that was a lot of it was like just from her ingredients that she grew, and a lot of it was kind of like freestyling for 40 people. And we were both like, oh my God, this is so fun. But the reality is our day-to-day is managing a ton of people and, guest experience, expectations, all this stuff. The politics of it. I mean, I know that's the natural question to ask how it is. You guys are so visible. It's so Israel, this. I mean, the reality is what Steve said. This is such a hard business. So people are asking us whether what's happening with Israel is affecting our business. Like, there's no way to really answer that. It just makes it much harder. Like, I don't know if it's affecting our business negatively.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't making things easier. But because it's such a difficult business, to add another factor to it, another complication, either with communications, with the way that we manage our team, the way that we, every day, I mean, Steve had to go cold turkey and take a break from political podcasts in the morning. Don't you feel like, Steve, for like almost a year and a half after October 7th, every single morning on the way in, we would just review what we heard you say, like it was like Times of Israel, call me back, like, Gore, all that together. And then that's what we would talk about for the first 2 or 3 hours of our day, which I think a lot of a lot of the diaspora was doing.
Yeah.
But then when you add that to like the rest of our very stressful, complicated day, it was like, it just became,
it's a lot.
A lot. And at the end of the day, maybe the answer, as we share this just amongst ourselves, is to just put our heads down and keep doing what we're doing. We're not going to apologize for who we are, right? We're not going to apologize for our identity. Not going to apologize for like the country of my birth. We're not going to apologize for our culture and our community, and certainly the food that we cook to represent that. It's who we are. We are not in control of like other people's bias or ignorance or any of those things. We're also not in control of like foreign governments, right? So I think at the end of the day, this goes back to what the mission was. We were just trying to like cook food. We were trying to represent, right, this place that is misunderstood.
Steve, anything you want to add?
I'm just thinking about something, Mike, you said the other day, which I think ties in here, which is, we got a lot going on in America too, that we might not be happy about or agree with. It doesn't make us love America less. I think it makes you makes you love it more. Like
wanting to.
Yeah, we are. I mean, like we are who we are. We don't control anything beyond ourselves and how we operate. And I'm proud of what we do. I'm proud of how we operate. And, some people we're never going to be able to convince some people that to like us. And that's okay, because we have plenty of support. We have plenty of people who come here because of what we do.
Last question. Do you guys ever do Shabbat dinner together? How do you decide who makes what?
Not often. I work most Friday nights.
Oh, right, exactly, right. Or any kind of meal together, but...
We have meals, like, it's funny, because we'll do, like, photo shoots, and they'll be like, you guys will have dinner. I'm like, man, we should really do this more often.
Because then you have dinner made.
Yeah.
Yeah, our kids joke about that, too. Like, we'll bring all the families together for, like, a photo shoot, and they're like, yeah, we do this every week.
Right.
But I don't know. It's fun. I mean, it's I can't, like, imagine... I feel so lucky to have this partnership. Like I can't imagine doing this. I can't imagine doing this on my own.
Or with anybody else. Thank you so much for being on What Matters Now. And thanks to you for listening to the Times of Israel latest episode. Stay tuned for tomorrow's installment. As always, feel free to recommend us to other listeners and rate us wherever you find your podcasts. Until next time, take care, be well. Shalom.